we've seen ls, we've seen make dir, we've seen echo within pwd. Well, and we said make dir means make directory, and it's used to create folders. Let's see how to create, say, a file. So in order to create a file, let's just do a tree again, and then I want to see the structure. I want to create a file inside the private. So I'll go into the private. So I'll say, let's just go back to our revision. So let's just do a cd. Cd means change directory, move into a folder. And so I'll say move into private. And then now I'm in private. Let me clear my screen. I'm in private, and in private we have just one folder. So here, if I do a tree, it should show me that inside private, there's only one folder. Now I want to create my file here. So I'll say touch. The keyword for creating a file is touch. Touch means create. So I'll just say create a file, and I'll call it new.txt. .txt is just the extension, just to make sure that this file is a text file. So now if I do an ls, you see that there are two stuff in there. The beauty of Linux is the fact that you'll be able to tell if it is a folder or a file. So even though loosely, as I said earlier on, in Linux, everything is seen as a file. Even folders are seen as files. Folders are seen as files which have list of other files. Later I'll explain what that means. But in this particular private folder, we have two things in there. We have a folder called first folder and another file called new.txt. Now, if I do an ls-l, it's going to tell me what these are. Now, the D, as I mentioned earlier, anytime you see a D starting when you do an ls-l, the D is telling you that that particular thing is a folder or a directory. When you see a dash, it's telling you that this is a text file or a file. Let's limit ourselves to a file. As I said earlier on, the first, after the D or whatever begins, which is beginning, then the next three, which is RWX, the first one means read. So basically what this means is that this particular directory can be read, written into, and then executed. When they say executed here, they means that because it's a directory, it means that you can do cd and then the name of the folder, you go inside there. But it's saying that the first RWX just means that for the user who is the account user, so OS boxes, that person can read the folder, can write to the folder, and can execute the folder. The next one is saying that if the group that this particular user belongs to, they can also read that folder, they can write to that folder, and they can execute that folder. Every other person can only read and execute, but they cannot add stuff. That's why the middle one is dash. So the same thing applies to the next one. The next one is another file, which is new.txt. So with new.txt, you can see that it's starting with a dash, which tells you that this is a file. And it's saying that we can read the file as a user. We can write to the file, meaning we can add certain things to the file. But it's saying that we cannot execute it. So basically, in order for us to execute it, it means that we need permissions, which is something that we'll discuss later. For the user, that's the two things that they can do. They can read and write. But assuming this user, so this user, if I can explain this user belongs to another group called the OS boxes. And with the OS boxes, what's happening is that with OS boxes, they can also read and write to the file, but they can also execute the file. So these are the two things that they can do. But with every other person, with this particular file, all they can do is just read the file.